Hello everybody, my name's Nibbler. I'm going to be going through with my Shadowpriest what we would need to do if we were to make a Power Auras setup. I'm going to do this video in several parts because this is one that I'll be doing from scratch, and it should give you more of the bases if you want to do another class of your own. So the first thing that we do is we look at the summaries. What sorts of things do we need to keep an eye on? Well, the basic damaging abilities to keep track of for a Shadowpriest are the three major dots, which are Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague. And when we're thinking about doing a power aura for them, we need to think about, okay, these things are debuffs on an enemy that will only be on in combat. So that's one thing we need to keep in mind. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is maybe if we look at our talent tree, one of the things that's worth looking at is evangelism, because this is an ability which stacks. It's when you cast Smite, Holy Fire or Mind Flay, you gain evangelism, stacks up to 5 times, lasts for 20 seconds. So it's worth knowing how much of that you've got about, and also because it has a direct effect on Archangel, you'll only want to trigger Archangel when you are up to the full number of stacks of evangelism, and that's because it restores 5% of your mana and increases the damage done by your Mind Flay, Mind Spike, Mind Blast or Shadow Word Death for 4% for each stack. So in effect, with a full 5 stacks of evangelism, you'll get a 20% boost to your damage from your various abilities. It will also be worth knowing when Archangel is off cooldown, so that we can hit it pretty immediately to keep it ticking over and keep our mana management going. Likewise, another ability that's worth keeping an eye of is Shadow Fiend. This is a DPS cooldown, which when it comes to the 4-piece set actually changes your rotation somewhat. I've not looked into the theory crafting behind whether it's a DPS out increase, but certainly for burn phases where you need to do a lot of nuking very quickly and can't be doing with the setup times of putting all of your dots up on a character, it's well worth putting some funds into this. So this is basically the 4-piece here tells you your Shadow Fiend and Shadowy Apparitions have a 100% chance to grant you 3 Shadow Orbs each time they deal damage. Speaking of Shadow Orbs, those are the main ability that you get with a Shadowpriest, and those give you an 80% chance every time your Shadow Word Pain or Mind Flay deals damage to gain an orb. And the Shadow Orbs have a particularly important effect because when you use either Mind Blast or Mind Spike, they're all used up and you gain a buff, and the buff is called Empowered Shadow. And this buff basically increases the amount of damage that your Shadow Orbs will do, and it increases the amount of damage that your dots will do as well. So it's a very, very important buff to keep up all the time. So whether you've got 1, 2 or 3 stacks of Shadow Orbs, you need to make sure that once those are up, you're hitting Mind Blast in part of your rotation. So we'll make one to keep an eye on that as well. I think for the time being that's pretty much it in terms of the basics. There are other things that you might want to keep an eye on, such as making sure that you've always got one of your Inner Fire or Inner Will buffs up, making sure that your Power Word Fortitude and Shadow Word Protection are always up. Sorry, Shadow Protection. So that everybody in your group is maximally buffed. And that's about it. So that will end this part of the tutorial. I'm going to stitch the second part straight onto the end of this anyway, but just for recording purposes it makes it a little easier. So we'll open up Power Auras then. We need to think of what we need to do. So first of all, I think the basics are, we'll go off the things that we've done previously, so let's get these buffs sorted. So we've got a new one, yep, new one. We'll edit this, move it over to the side so that we can see where we are. We're going to be doing Shadow Word Pain first, so that's a debuff. We want to make sure it's on an enemy target and cast by me. This is a button I just discovered where basically it will put the button itself up. I tend to shrink most of my dots to about 40% and I move them over to the left, whereas my stacks and triggered abilities tend to appear on the right or at the bottom. So this is just personal preference. Again, you can put these wherever you want. That's the beauty of this, is that you can edit everything. Put opacity up to full just so that if you've got any dodgy effects in the background you'll still be able to see everything. And we will call this Shadow Word Pain. So there we go. Animation, do we want to do anything? Well, I don't think so. Sound, I don't think we need anything there. Timer, yes, we definitely want to see this. So we'll put the timer up and we'll move it to the bottom of the aura again, as I normally do. Sometimes the timer doesn't show up when you're making your ability, so what I tend to do is I'll close the effect editor down and just close Power Auras, and then I'll reopen it again. And the timer's appeared now. I remove the hundreds, I add the hide leading zeros. I'll just move this up a little bit so that it's within the aura itself. And there we go, that should be the first one. Now, I'm not sure why this is still on a question mark, so you might have got something wrong, but this is, a lot of this is trial and error, and you have to do this yourself to figure out what else needs to be done. So if we close all these bits down, and then if I cast on here, so it's appeared, so that's working, marvellous. And then when we go back into Power Auras, it should show you the main ability here. And we've actually earned a couple of Shadow Orbs during that. I will quickly, in the same way, sort out Vampiric Touch and Devouring Plague. So again, down to about 40% size, just for neatness purpose. Move it over to the left and line it up and just tuck it up a little bit there. Okay, so this one will be Vampiric Touch. Same again, so it's doesn't necessarily, it needs to be it's not a weapon enchant, it's a debuff. So we'll put that on there and then make sure it's an enemy target, make sure it's cast by me. And we'll put a timer on, we'll show that. Again, it's not shown up on here, we'll put it at the bottom and we'll preempt and just move it up a little bit. Okay, we'll hide them all, we'll test them all. Aha, there we go, it's appeared. Move it up a little bit more. Don't show the hundreds, hide the leading zeros, personal preference. And we're good to go from that one. So we'll do another one now. We'll close this, make a new one. This will be Devouring Plague. So again, this is a debuff. you getting the hang of this? Debuff cast by me on an enemy target. Type in Devouring Plague. I'm sorry, my talk button is right on the screen, so that's why you keep getting all that shooting across. So we'll go back to, we've got our previous aura up, so we want to be below that, but we'll just test all to make sure. So 40%. Again, another thing for personal preference, if you want to see it being a bit bigger or whatever, use own texture. I like that button, that's my new favourite button. Move it down so that we're down here now. Everything's okay on this page. Timer we want to see. Show hundreds, no. Hide zeros. Aha, we've got the timer straight off this time. Put it to the bottom. Move it up. Just within. And there we go. Those are our debuffs. So if I close this down here and close this down here, then hopefully this should work. So that works. And Vampiric Touch, that works, and that works. So it's all working. And we've got a countdown now of how much is left, so we know when to refresh these two. This one tends to be refreshed just by Mind Flay, so we don't need to worry about that.